Dexter is filled with crazy moments and shocking revelations that absolutely no one sees coming, but some tend to hit harder than others. Today, we're taking a look at some of the best plot twists in the series, starting with one that left everyone reeling: the death of James Dokes. After the ice truck killer investigation wrapped, the team at Miami Metro was tasked with investigating the discovery of several bodies found dumped off the coast of Miami. Given the nature of the body disposal, the killer was given the moniker of the Bay Harbor Butcher, and the hunt was on. The rest of the team may have moved on, but Sergeant James Dokes knew in his gut that Dexter was more closely involved in the ITK case than he ever let on. Dokes never liked Dexter and was outwardly hostile towards him at every turn. Dexter gave Dokes the creeps from the moment they met, but Dokes could never pinpoint what exactly was off about him. But after the ITK case, he was determined to figure out what it was, and that is exactly what he did. After stalking Dexter for weeks, the feud between them grew, and finally a boiling point when Dokes attacked Dexter in the bullpen and got suspended from the force pending investigation into his conduct by Internal Affairs. With his newfound free time, Dokes broke into Dexter's apartment, found his box of blood slides, and knew he had the proof that Dexter wasn't just a weirdo, but a serial killer. Dokes tracked Dexter's boat and caught him in the act of disposing of his latest victim. He wanted to take Dexter in, but Dexter wasn't going down without a fight. Dexter couldn't just kill Dokes because technically he didn't fit the code. Instead, he decided to frame Dokes as the Bay Harbor Butcher and get him thrown in prison instead. Dexter had Dokes locked up in a cage in a remote cabin in the Florida Everglades while he put his frame job into motion. But Dexter would never get the chance. It would have been sad to see Dokes go down for Dexter's crimes, but what actually happened to him was much worse. In one of the most shocking twists of the season, Dexter's crazy ex Lila stole his GPS, found the cabin he had been going to, and discovered Dokes locked inside. She delusionally believed that she and Dexter were meant to be together as soulmates, even after Dokes told her that Dexter was the butcher. Seeing the threat he posed to Dexter's freedom and their potential to be a couple, she made the split decision to blow the cabin up with Dokes trapped inside. Watching her turn on the stove and open the gas line was one of the most harrowing moments in television history. She managed to get out before the cabin blew up, but Dokes wasn't as lucky. The next day, James's former colleagues from Miami Metro Homicide were fishing bits of his body out of the swamps surrounding the remnants of the cabin, and he was presumed to be the Bay Harbor Butcher as well. He would never be able to clear his name, and Lila made sure of that. The investigation into the BHB was officially closed, and Dexter was off the hook completely. Dead men tell no tells, and Dokes was no exception. James Dokes was a beloved character in the franchise, and many people, me included, thought his death came way too soon, but his wasn't even the most unexpected death that would have us all picking our jaws up off the floor. After an explosive start, Dexter Resurrection seemed like it couldn't get any better. In just the first 4 episodes, the sequel series managed to achieve some of the highest ratings on any streaming service. Dexter wound up in New York City searching for Harrison after he survived the gunshot to the chest. The fact that Dexter was alive was a major plot twist in and of itself, but Resurrection had even more twists still to come. Perhaps one of the best ones came when it was revealed that the Gemini killer was really a pair of twins. This info blindsided both the audience and Dexter at the exact same time. Dexter didn't uncover this twist through forensics, clues, or careful deduction like he normally would. He discovered it in a much more sudden way. He knew that he had personally killed Gareth, one of the Gemini twins. Less than 24 hours earlier, Dexter had drugged, stabbed, and dismembered Gareth in his own apartment. He burned the remains in a furnace and watched the evidence turn to ash. Yet the next morning, Gareth casually walked up to board Leon Prater's private helicopter as if nothing had happened. It was the kind of impossible sight that froze Dexter in place, one we don't normally get to see. He really didn't understand what he was seeing for a second there, but then it dawned on him. The only possible explanation was that Gareth had a twin. He was stunned by the revelation and realized then that no one else knew the truth. Dexter was able to take Gareth out the night before because Gareth basically served himself up on a silver platter. He followed Dexter back to his apartment after he saw him take a cryptic note he left inside a bookstore earlier that day, wanting answers. Gareth confronted Dexter inside his apartment. Of course, this was a huge violation of Dexter's privacy, and there's no doubt that it annoyed him, but instead of escalating to violence, Dexter saw this as a perfect opportunity to take Gemini out. He had already decided he would eventually eliminate everyone in Prater's secret serial killer collective, and Gareth arrogantly stepped into Dexter's plan sooner than expected. While Gareth talked, Dexter calmly prepared 2 drinks. Little did Gemini know, one of them was laced with M99 tranquilizer. Gareth didn't seem to sense the danger at first, but he still thought to switch drinks with Dexter at the last minute. Sadly for him, Dexter anticipated that move and had actually handed Gareth the unspiked drink. So when he switched them, he basically administered the M99 to himself. Within seconds, he was unconscious, making the kill clean and easy. Even though Dexter hadn't exactly planned it out, after he threw the body parts in the furnace, in Dexter's mind, it was a very efficient kill. So when Gareth appeared the next morning, alive and prepared to depart with everyone else, Dexter was faced with the truth that Gareth had a twin brother, and soon he would realize that his brother was dead. They had apparently been pulling this act off for years through an elaborate process that no one else knew about. They were both operating together under the shared identity of the Gemini Killer. The brothers had mastered a system of coordinated alibis and alternated public appearances to create the illusion that there was a single unstoppable predator pulling off all their kills. There were never any inconsistencies and no one suspected a thing. Before that helicopter ride, they covered for each other perfectly. Watching Dexter's stunned expression when Gareth got out of his car was priceless. The twist was so good because after it was revealed, it almost seemed obvious. I mean, the name Gemini was an obvious clue, and the night before at Dexter's apartment, Gareth told Dexter that the note was for himself. He meant the other half of the Gemini, his twin brother. Not only that, but Dexter is rarely caught off guard, but he didn't see this one coming at all. But this wouldn't be the first time he was totally blindsided by a killer's big secret. The reveal that Captain Aaron Spencer was the true big bad in Dexter Original Sin is one of the most captivating twists yet. Up to that point, Spencer presented himself as a respected, disciplined leader within Miami Metro. He seemed firmly committed to public safety and keeping the department running smoothly and getting results. Nothing about his behavior suggested that he had a capacity for the level of cruelty that would come later. That contrast is part of what made the final reveal so shocking. Here was a charismatic authority figure who was close friends with Harry, and it turned out that he wasn't just corrupt, but a completely unhinged fucking lunatic. Spencer's motives for abducting Jimmy Powell and Nikki Spencer stemmed from a twisted mission to make his wife pay for leaving him. His entire world revolved around his obsession with revenge on her for breaking his heart. Jimmy was the son of a powerful judge in Miami, and sadly, he was basically just collateral damage in Spencer's sick plan. He abducted and killed Jimmy first, not only to set the narrative that whoever was responsible had a grudge with figures of authority, but also so his wife would know exactly what was planned for Nikki after he went missing. Then he kidnapped his own son to throw suspicion off of him and make it seem like he was just another victim of the madman who took Jimmy Powell. After all, what kind of a monster would kidnap their own son and chop off his finger? Spencer was already the last person anyone would think was behind it all because of his position as the captain of homicide. When Spencer was unmasked, it reminded everyone of the uncomfortable fact that sometimes true evil is masked by a police badge. And even the people we have been taught to trust can be hiding horrifying secrets. It was revealed earlier in the series that Jimmy Powell had only been fed a boxed lunch product called Sunny Smiles. So when the camera pans up to reveal Captain Spencer buying a bunch of them after his son was already abducted, it was a crazy moment. The crazed look in his eye only made it that much better. Some fans may have seen it coming, but for most of us, it was a jaw-dropping moment. The idea that a leader in law enforcement was the one orchestrating the crimes his own police department was trying to stop was an incredible twist. It was a reminder of how often people willingly overlook warning signs simply because someone is in a position of power. Aaron Spencer played the role of a grieving father and dedicated cop very well, and he had everyone fooled. The reveal was just perfect and came at just the right moment. But this wasn't the only plot twist that had us all on the edge of our seats. Lumen leaving Dexter remains one of the most emotionally surprising moments we have ever seen from Dexter. It was particularly heartbreaking largely because of how quickly and honestly their relationship developed and how deeply Dexter connected with her. Lumen was thrust into Dexter's life in a very sudden way. Dexter had just killed Boyd Fowler. He didn't know it yet, but Boyd was just one of the 5 members of the Barrel Girls gang. Together, the men would rape, torture, and kill young women, all under the direction of millionaire self-help guru Jordan Chase. It was after the deed was done, and Dexter was preparing to dispose of Boyd's body, that he discovered that Boyd had a living victim hidden in his house. Lumen saw everything, putting Dexter's secret in jeopardy. But instead of killing her to tie up any loose ends, Dexter made a rare, instinctive choice to protect her. This decision marked the beginning of a relationship unlike any other he'd had. At first, he tried to push her away from vengeance, believing it would destroy her and complicate his own life. But when he realized her trauma had given her a dark passenger of her own, Dexter gradually allowed her into his world. Lumen revealed that there were other men involved in her abuse besides Boyd. Dan Mindel, Cole Harmon, Alex Tilden, and Jordan Chase were all a part of it, and Dexter slowly became invested in helping her seek justice. As they worked together, Dexter grew attached to her in a way that felt real. Lumen didn't judge him for his methods, she embraced them. She learned the code. She didn't shy away during kills. They bonded with each other through shared pain and trauma and acceptance for each other's demons. For the first time, Dexter met someone who saw exactly who he was and didn't run. That's why it hurt so much when Lumen broke the news to Dexter. Once they killed Jordan Chase, they completed Lumen's mission to get revenge, and her darkness was gone. Unlike Dexter, Lumen didn't need to kill. She had been acting on her fresh trauma, not an innate instinct to kill just anyone. With Chase dead, the internal force driving her just disappeared. She cared for Dexter a lot, but she didn't feel the need or find any justification to continue living the way Dexter did. Her healing meant she had to move on, but Dexter was already imagining a future with her. What made Lumen's departure stand out wasn't just the fact that it came out of nowhere. It was also because of the emotional response it elicited from Dexter. He finally allowed himself to open up, to trust someone with his full truth, and to believe that honesty might lead to connection rather than destruction. For the first time since Rita's death, he felt something real for someone. Lumen became the first person who understood him completely, accepted who he was, and still walked away, leaving him alone all over again. It proved that even when Dexter finds someone who shares his darkness, there is no guarantee that they'll stay with him. Dexter's huge outburst when he couldn't convince her to stay made Lumen's exit unforgettable. It was one of the most vulnerable and human moments we'd seen from him up to that point, but it wouldn't be the last. The discovery of Rita's body at the end of season 4 stands as one of the most devastating and haunting twists in the series. Up to that point, we had just witnessed Dexter finally bring down Arthur Mitchell, the Trinity Killer, after their false friendship turned into a deadly chess match. The victory felt hard-earned, especially because Trinity was Dexter's greatest adversary to date, intelligent, menacing, with a particularly disturbing ritual. After Dexter ambushed Trinity and got him on his table, Dexter and everyone watching believed the danger was over. The pacing, the timing, the music, everything was perfect. The season seemed like it was about to end on yet another triumphant note for Dex. Instead, he was soon thrust into one of his darkest moments. Everything started so subtly. Dexter came home, worn out but satisfied, expecting a quiet night before flying off to be with Rita and Harrison in the Florida Keys for a last-minute honeymoon. Everything felt calm, almost too calm. The house was silent at first, and Dexter took a moment to check his voicemail and call Rita. But when Dexter heard the phone ringing inside the house, a sense of dread set in. Dexter found her phone, and soon after, he heard Harrison crying from somewhere deeper in the house. He followed the sound of Harrison's cries, and as horrifying as it was to see Harrison crying in a pool of blood, it paled in comparison to what he saw next. Rita's lifeless body was in a tub of bloody bathwater. She has been murdered and left staged in the Trinity Killer's signature style. The way this revelation rewrote the ending of the Trinity arc in real time was mind-blowing. Despite his best efforts to protect his family, Trinity had already been to the house before Dexter got the chance to kill him. For most of the season, it seemed like Trinity had been one step ahead at all times, and even in death, he managed to leave one last devastating blow. Rita's death also shattered the illusion that Dexter could maintain a normal family life while feeding his dark urges. Up until then, Dexter had managed to compartmentalize his world. Husband and father by day, vigilante killer by night. The scene destroys that delusion in an instant. Trinity's final act reminds Dexter that his two lives are inseparable, but more importantly, that he isn't the only one who is in danger if he keeps killing. The people he loves are too. The twist is brutal and expertly timed. It didn't pull any punches. We were immediately brought back to the cold reality of who Dexter really is and the consequences of that. Dexter finding Rita's body is widely regarded as one of, if not the, most shocking cliffhangers of any series. So much of Dexter's life depended on keeping his secret from everyone around him. He had all but mastered the ability to appear normal in public and had created the perfect cover life for a time. For years, the only people who knew Dexter as a serial killer were the people he got on his table. Whenever anyone got too close or figured him out, he would eliminate the threat they posed one way or another. For a while, the only person who knew his secret and lived was Lumen, but that changed as the homicide department closed in on the Doomsday Killer. After a series of disturbing public tableaus, the police found out that the Doomsday Killers were actually one person, Travis Marshall. They also found the church he had been using as his headquarters to plan the different stages of his apocalyptic plan. The police were on the cusp of catching him, but so was Dexter. There is the added twist of Deb thinking she was in love with Dexter, which is nothing short of disturbing, but not as disturbing as what she walked in on when she went to tell him how she felt. Why she picked a church setting for that, I have no idea. She sent Dexter to conduct a final forensic sweep of the church Travis had been holding up in, so she knew where to find him. She didn't know it yet, but Dexter had already caught Travis and was in the process of setting up his kill room at the church. Just as Deb walked in, Dexter was plunging a sword into Travis's chest, and she saw everything. Dexter's first reaction was instinctive. He lied. He told Deb it wasn't what it looked like, trying to frame the kill as an act of self-defense. But Deb isn't an idiot. She knew she walked in on something planned and intentional, not a struggle. The plastic, the tools, the altar, these all pointed to the fact that this was not self-defense. Deb finally saw the real Dexter, and his lies only underscored how good he'd become at manipulating everyone around him to maintain the illusion of normalcy. Once the shock settled, Deb was forced into the same kind of moral compromise that would later define her tragic arc. Instead of turning Dexter in, she helped him cover up the crime scene. Together, they dismantled the kill setup, destroyed evidence, and staged Travis's death as a suicide tied to the Doomsday investigation. Every step Deb took away from the truth was killing her, but she wasn't going to turn on her brother. It was the first time she actively participated in concealing a murder, and it ruined how she saw herself and Dexter. She was beginning to unravel in ways she couldn't fully process yet. For Dexter, the moment obliterated the illusion of his fake life. Everything he built as a cover from his job and his relationship to his reputation as a dependable coworker and brother was wiped away the instant Deb saw him kill Travis. His carefully maintained mask didn't slip, it was ripped all the way off. And unlike every other witness he had silenced before, Deb couldn't be handled, threatened, or disposed of. She was his family, and the only person whose opinion really mattered to him. Deb walking in on his ritual officially erased any remaining boundary between Dexter's public and private lives, and it marked the beginning of a downward spiral for the both of them. This twist was insane to witness because, for the first time ever, Dexter's secret wasn't just his burden, and he couldn't lie his way out of trouble. At that point, it was Deb's problem too, and it poisoned everything that came after. It was absolutely wild to watch it all unfold, and we were left stunned by the cliffhanger season finale. But Deb making troubling compromises for Dexter was really just beginning. Maria's death was absolutely devastating. We knew that Dexter was planning to break the code by killing her to protect himself and Deb, but that's not what happened. Before he got the chance, his sister Deb, one of the most morally driven people at Miami Metro, would do it for him. After that, nothing would ever be the same. Deb ended up in that shipping yard with a gun pointed at either her serial killer brother or a completely innocent woman. After Travis Marshall's death, Maria found Dexter's blood slide at the crime scene. With that, her investigation into the Bay Harbor Butcher was back on, and it was slowly zeroing in on Dexter. By the second half of the season, she was completely convinced that Dokes was framed and Dexter was the only other possible suspect. Even after Dexter made her look like she was framing him, Maria wasn't backing down. She only became more aggressive the more Dexter tried to wiggle his way out. She lured Dexter into to a kill by getting one of his mother's murderers, Hector Estrada, released from prison early. Maria knew he wouldn't be able to resist targeting Estrada, and she would be there to catch Dexter red-handed, finally clearing Dokes' name. But Dexter turned the tables yet again. He used Estrada as bait to get LaGuerta to the shipping yard where he could kill them both. Dexter planned to stage it to look like they killed each other, finally eliminating the loose end that was Maria LaGuerta. It was all going off without a hitch until Deb arrived. She tried to talk Dexter out of killing Maria, but he was determined. Deb's moral crisis had been building all season. She already compromised herself so much by covering up for Dexter after he killed Travis. She destroyed evidence, lied to her coworkers, and protected him from scrutiny whenever she could. But killing LaGuerta meant stepping completely outside of herself. She would be abandoning her entire identity. All of her integrity, her sense of justice, her reason for working in her field was on the line, but Dexter was her brother. The choice seemed impossible. In the shipping yard, LaGuerta begged Deb to put Dexter down, and he agreed, offering himself up to be shot so Deb wouldn't have to choose. Deb was forced to choose between exposing Dexter and destroying him, or killing LaGuerta and destroying herself. In the end, she chose to protect her brother and shot Maria right in the chest. The twist is so shocking because the audience had never seen Deb cross such a hard moral line before. She had shot criminals on the job before, but that was different. They were bad guys, and Maria helped catch bad guys. She didn't deserve to die. Covering up, lying, keeping quiet for Dexter, those were moral slips, but Deborah still saw herself as redeemable. She was still rationalizing it all. This was a permanent betrayal, not only of Maria, but of herself. Pulling the trigger on LaGuerta wasn't just another small compromise to help her brother. It was a total collapse of the person Deb believed she was. In an instant, she abandoned everything she thought she was for her entire life. The way that Deb cradled Maria's lifeless body after killing her was almost impossible to watch. The raw emotion and intense character development that Deb immediately experienced made this plot twist and the finale of season 7 unforgettable. New Blood spent the early episodes nudging people towards believing that Edward Olsen, the wealthy, creepy old man with a controlling streak, was going to be the big bad. He looked sinister, acted sinister, and the show framed him as the obvious threat. But that was all misdirection. The real monster was hiding in plain sight. The shocking twist came when Kurt Caldwell, Iron Lake's friendly local truck stop owner and pillar of the community, was revealed as the actual predator. Not only was he the big bad of the season, he turned out to be one of the most disturbing serial killers in the entire franchise. The real jaw-dropper, though, wasn't just that Kurt was the killer, it was what he kept beneath his cabin. It was horrifying when Dexter and Harrison stepped into his underground bunker and found rows of perfectly preserved, embalmed victims posed behind glass. Kurt didn't just kill, he collected. He created a museum of human trophies, carefully maintained for decades. That scene was one of the most haunting reveals in all of Dexter, old or new. Another major twist in New Blood was the full confirmation that Harrison inherited Dexter's darkness. For years, everyone debated whether the trauma Harrison experienced as a baby had imprinted something deeper onto him. New Blood finally answered the question, and Resurrection delves right into it. Harrison's violent fantasies, explosive temper, and fascination with justice weren't just normal teenage rebellion. They were signs of his own dark passenger surfacing. When he confronted Ethan at school, slashed him, and lied to Dexter about it, it was clear this wasn't a kid who just needed therapy or attention. This was someone who understood violence on an instinctive level. The twist was impactful because it reframed their entire relationship. Harrison didn't just crave a father, he craved someone who understood the darkness inside him. It brought father and son closer while setting them on a collision course that would ultimately tear them apart just to bring them back again. The ending of New Blood seemed final. Harrison shoots Dexter, Dexter appears to die, case closed. But as we quickly learned in Dexter Resurrection, the story was not over. Despite the controversy surrounding New Blood's finale, the resurrection of Dexter Morgan was a massive twist for the franchise. Resurrection revealed that Dexter survived the gunshot, slipped into a coma, and eventually recovered, making his death another chapter in his long pattern of escaping fate. While the revival of a main character is always a debated move, in a franchise built on deception, reinvention, and second lives, this plot twist was both shocking and strangely fitting. Dexter Morgan once again refused to stay dead, and look, we're all here for it. Perhaps the most heartbreaking twist in Resurrection is the death of Angel Batista, one of the longest running, most beloved characters in the entire series. Batista spent years as Dexter's friend, colleague, and moral opposite, growing into one of the emotional anchors of the show. For so long, Batista seemed untouchable, a survivor in a world where everyone eventually falls. But Resurrection shattered that illusion. In his pursuit of the revived Bay Harbor Butcher case and the growing evidence against Dexter, Batista finally got too close to the truth and paid the ultimate price. His death wasn't just shocking. It sent a message that the new era of Dexter isn't playing safe. If Batista can die, anyone can. But there is still one twist that was even more surprising, and it came in the very first season of the show. The Miami Metro Homicide Department is on the hunt for a serial killer they dubbed the Ice Truck Killer, after finding the bloodless, dismembered bodies of sex workers staged in different areas around the city. The killer looked like a highly skilled and twisted individual. All of the victims were dismembered with surgical precision, and the bodies were eerily well preserved. All of the positioning seemed intentional, and they were left in public places as if they were meant to be found. The case had Miami residents on high alert for weeks, and it wasn't easy to solve. Slowly but surely, the homicide department peeled back the layers of the case as best they could, but they could have never guessed what the full story behind the killings really was. Things sped up after one of the victims was found alive. Tony Tucci had been abducted by the killer, who, instead of killing him right away like he did the other targets, he only removed parts of his body. He sprinkled the dismembered parts around Miami until Tucci was eventually found and rescued by police. Tony was set up in the hospital and fit for prosthetics by a Dr. Rudy Cooper. As the police worked closely with Tony to find the perp, Deb and Rudy began dating, but she didn't know who she had just let into her life. Halfway through the season, it's revealed that Rudy was actually ITK, but the twists didn't stop there. Turned out that Rudy wasn't just a sick freak who liked bleeding women dry before chopping them up. His main reason for committing all of those murders and disfiguring Tony was for the sole purpose of getting Dexter's attention. Why? Well, that was the biggest twist yet. Rudy Cooper didn't actually exist. His real name was Brian Moser, and he was Dexter's long-lost brother. They were separated at a young age after their father was placed in prison for selling drugs, and their mother was murdered by the cartel as the police investigated their operation. Dexter had almost no memory of his biological family, including his brother, and Brian had been on a years-long mission to reunite with Dexter. The moment the truth was revealed, it was jaw-dropping. All of this meant that Deb had been dating a serial killer. Dexter had been unknowingly hunting his own brother, and the investigation had been manipulated from the inside. It was a twist that didn't just shock everyone watching, but also explained Dexter's entire backstory, and the added context made sense of why he was the way he was. The reveal was well timed and so huge that ITK is still seen as one of the best villains in the Dexter universe, with one of the most tragic deaths because, of course, Dexter was left to kill his own brother and deal with the guilt and trauma that comes with that. In a show with so many other shocking developments, ITK being Dexter's brother has to be the biggest one. What was your favorite plot twist in the show? Drop a comment below and let us know. If you liked this video, check out our breakdown of the biggest plot holes in Dexter. And remember to plunge a knife in the heart of that subscribe button for more Dexter breakdowns. Thanks for watching.